Welcome back to On the Workbench. Today we're going to be covering how to use the Porter Cable dovetail template for how to cut half-blind dovetails. This is the simplest of all the jig templates. This jig comes with various templates that you can change out on top here. A couple of things here when we think about getting started here. There's two big important things we have to have. Besides a router, we're going to need safety glasses and ear protection for use with the router. It's just your standard safety protocol. We're also going to need some wood that's pre-cut. We'll go over what sizes to cut that with. And we're going to need a router that accepts a 1/2 inch router bed. For the router, the template comes with the proper dovetails bit. It has a 1/2 inch shank. And one of the things that I like in the router is I like having my D-handle router where I can control the on-off state of the router here just right on it. Right now this is set up upside down here so the bit is off the ground. Right now this is unplugged just for quick reference. But I like having the D handle here rather than having to flip it off here. If I had two hands on the router, I don't have a third hand to flip that off for control. So I think personally a D handle router works much better for this, or some other way where you've got a handle, when your hand's on the handle, it can also control a switch. Just makes it a much safer operation because we always want to remember that safety comes first, anything that we do in our wood shops. So the next question is, well, how do we set the height of the bit here? That the bit height is actually part of the template. So I've got this adjusted, and we'll take this over to the jig. Now one of the things here when we look at the jig, so up here on top, we've got a bushing that goes into our router template here. So you're also going to need a router that accepts a bushing, and then the diameter of this bushing is very important because then that bushing size goes in right here for use with the half blind. So then we've got this reference point where we'll slide that in, and it comes with a preset black stop on the left side. And so all we have to do is adjust our router bit so then the bottom of the router bit is just right here grazing the top of this plastic stop here. We don't need to make it turn the router on. We can just use our fine adjustments on the router to get the right depth set correctly. So now when it comes time to figuring out pieces, so I'm going to be cutting a box that is wider than it is long, so this is going to exaggerate the setup here a little bit. So my long pieces of stock are going to be the width, and the short sides of the stock are going to be the depth of my drawer. And so in this case here, my long stock is cut to the exact width that I want the drawer to be, and then that long width is going to go across the top. Now I'm going to set that in under the jig like this. And it's important to have this jig secured down to a work surface. And then we'll take the drawer side and put up the front here. And so this is going to cut the dovetails here with this being set up in sort of a inside out manner. It's important to have your pieces all nice and square on the jig. The squarer the pieces are on the jig, the better results that you're going to get. I'm going to be looking a little bit closer here for one of the last adjustments here. One of the last adjustments is right here on these grooves. There's a little raised notch which needs to line up right on the seam between your two work pieces. And so then whenever we go to route, we're going to cut everything here in one pass, or maybe two as we go right around, but everything that we'll cut our pins and our tails on our dovetails here all at the same time. You may want to add an extra piece on the end if you're worried about tear out on your workpiece, but then everything here is going to line up. You can see there's a nice little black piece of metal right here that creates a perfect offset for your pieces. There's also the same thing on the other side, that if your material, depending upon the depth of your material and how it lines up with these template fingers, if that would work better on the right or the left. It might take some trial and error to figure out, and then all you have to do is then take that bushing and follow right along the edges here and make sure you route everything in order. You can go back with a couple passes, make sure everything's cleaned up, and make sure you got the right roundovers on the front, and then with the right depth, then everything works out perfectly. And you flip this over, and so this right here is the side, this is the front, and then this will then flip over and up because we're cutting this inside out, if you will. So then give me just a second here to get my router powered up, and you can watch me cut this dovetail. after cleaning this up, everything's all nice and level all the way across here. We got all of our pins and tails cut out, and you can see how there's a little bit of offset here as you bring the bearing and the router bushing around these little template fingers here. That creates the right little slots that this will then just fold over in. So a little bit of light sanding cleans up the tear out here on the edges. Flip this over and we'll have a perfect dovetail. So if I remove my side, remove my front, you can see there's there, and then here's my pins. And then these mate in just like this. Now in this case here, it looks like I made it's sitting just a little deep. So that means I need to adjust my workplace positioning. But if it's just a little bit proud, you can always sand those down a little bit here, or knock it out with a pin nailer, and you got perfect dovetails that work. So it's really simple and works really well. Hope you found this useful for the Porter Cable dovetail template. There's additional templates you can purchase for doing through dovetails, doing mini dovetails, and a couple other bits you can buy for doing some other detailed work. But this is probably the most common type when I'm doing drawers. I like dovetails on my drawers because of the strong connection between the face and the side, as do most furniture makers. So this is just a quick review and a how-to guide on how to use this. The last detail here, the router I was using is a 14 amp, and I believe it's a 2.5 horse Craftsman router. But the important thing is that you have a quick on-off switch on one of the handles when you're using it, rather so that you can always turn it on or off in a safe manner. A couple other advanced features you can have here. So the stock I'm using here is just a 1x6 stock, but if you're using thicker stock or thinner stock, there's a knob on either side here that you can use to be able to adjust this template here up or down to adjust the thickness of the material here. And there's also knobs on the lock bar here at the bottom right here that you can adjust to move this in and out to make sure that everything is spaced appropriately. You need to make sure that the little marks here line up on the right spot here, and it'll automatically deal with differences in thicknesses between materials. The only time I use this jig is usually for drawers, and most of my drawers are exclusively for 1x material, and so that makes it really easy just for the setup here to leave it like that. But if you work with different material thicknesses, you can change that. The other use that you'd use with these knobs here is to move this template forward or back, which is how you would adjust if the dovetails are standing proud of the pins, or if the reverse is true, you can move this in or out to be able to move this these little grooves forward or back of the line that you've got between your wood. It also helps out quite a bit to make sure that you've got nice straight cuts on your wood so it lines up as seamlessly as possible. The more seamless it is, the better of a joint you're going to get as a result of it. The rest of the pins here, you probably should just leave alone and not adjust. There's no reason to adjust it. The other slots over here are if you want to be able to use like a sliding dovetail, or if you want to adjust it for just a straight, essentially a dado. And then there's 3 different stops over here you can line it up with. You need other bits, and refer to the owner's manual for how to do that. If you want just a straight dado, I do that in the table saw. I'm not going to do that with a router here. I'll just run those through there. I don't really use sliding dovetails, so I can't explain to you much about that. But using these basic half-blind dovetails, this jig works really well. I should also point here on the floor that it does produce quite a bit of dust, so you want to make sure you've got the appropriate dust collection in place, or a means to be able to clean up after it, because dust will get everywhere, and this just generates a lot of dust as it plows out all of the material around every of these slots to create all the pins and tails and the dovetails. It'll just keep spitting out. Rockler makes a dust collection adapter for their own brand of this tool. I don't have any experience with it, but at some point I hope to be able to get one to be able to adapt it to this here. But I don't make that many drawers that often to be able to justify it yet, but maybe at some point I'll consider doing that. So I hope you found this useful. Thanks.